Good morning, everyone. I'm Lydia from Novelty, and today we're talking about the books I read in October. First of all, for the fiction books, the first book I read was The Promise of Dawn, and this book it reminded me kind of Laura Ingalls because it really went into the gritty details of everyday life, like scrubbing boards and cleaning houses and chopping down trees. But for me, the details kind of bogged the story down a little bit. It didn't feel like there was a ton of action or a ton of moving forward or any of that kind of stuff, so it didn't really jive with me, but it was well written and the descriptions were pretty good. In September, I read Many Sparrows by Laurie Benton, and I really liked the book. And there were these characters that were talked about in the book, and I kept wanting to find out more about them, like, who are these people? And it said at the back of the book in the author's note that they were characters from another book she had written, and it told what book it was. Well, when I got home, because I had been on a trip when I read that, I went to the library and got out her other books, which were Burning Sky, At the Wood's Edge, and A Flight of Arrows. And I was like, yes, I can't wait to find out more about these characters. And I read all three of those books, and the characters never emerged. And I'm like, where are they? And it turns out it was her other book. I don't even know the title of it, but I want to read it someday, possibly. Although I'm not quite sure, because these three books over here had some content I did not appreciate in them. It wasn't anything like too detailed, but there were different things that the characters did that I highly do not condone. And so I'm like, I don't know. She writes beautifully. Like, her writing is spot on. It took me straight into the world. Even now, like a month after reading those books, I can be like, oh yes, this is exactly where it was, and I can picture all of it. But there's enough with her books that I don't appreciate that I probably won't be reading any more of them anytime soon. Cherished Mercies. This book I read for review, and unfortunately I did not like it very much. It just did not feel like it drew me in. I never felt like I got to know the characters. I never cared about the characters, so sadly this book was not on the top of my list. Finally and Forever by Robin Jones Gunn. I listened to the first two books in this series, and then this is the third book, and I had not realized how much I enjoyed this author's writing until I listened to it, because I have this habit of like just really reading fast, and so I miss some of the beautiful details. One of the books that I listened to, I forget which one it was, I think it was the second one in the series, it had literally the most beautiful description of a sunrise that I have ever read in my entire life. And I can remember right where I was when I was listening to it, because I was like, oh, she's such a good author. I just want to hug all of her books. And I had never felt that way while reading her books, so I was like, okay, I think I have missed out on some of the beauty of her books by reading too fast. What Dreams May Come by Alana Cherry. I don't hardly ever read books that are specifically in the romance genre, because that just is not my style. But I really wanted to read this book because Alana Cherry is one of my favorite authors, and this is her story. It's fiction, but she said that she took her real love story and just kind of tweaked things here and there to make it into a fiction book. So I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I want to read it and find out more about her. And in reality, it was not too romantic at all for my taste, which is a very rare thing for me to say. It was sweet, and I didn't exactly like it a ton because of different things. It was like my own personal stuff that made me not really like it, because overall, I think most people would find it to be a really great book. And the last fiction book I read this month was Abridged, which is the 7th book in the Carnegie Stern suspense Christian fiction series, and it's also by Alana Cherry. And so it was fun to dive back into her world, and a new book's coming out soon in that series, so I'm looking forward to it. Now for nonfiction. My probably favorite book of the entire month was the first nonfiction book I read, and that was Cool, Calm, and Connected. I don't have it with me because I already gave it to somebody to borrow, because it was so spot on and so amazing that I was like, everyone should read this. So that includes y'all. You should totally read it. 8 Simple Tools for Raising Great Kids. Yes, it is another parenting book, and I actually read The 5 Love Languages for Children also, which is kind of a parenting book, because I just find these kind of books to be so intriguing, and they both had great information. I enjoy reading parenting books even though I am not a parent. True Identity, Finding Significance and Freedom Through Who You Are in Christ. This was another book I read for review, and another 5-star read, and another one I do not have with me because I already gave it to someone to borrow because it was that good. It was not what I expected, because I had not realized it was written for teens, but it ended up being really good and really spot on about where we put our significance and who we really are and what makes us us and what's important in life and all that great kind of stuff. When Dreams Come True. I read this book about 10 years ago and really liked it, so I thought it would be fun to read it again and see if it met my expectations from what I recalled. And yes, it is a beautiful story and one that makes me go, oh, and reminds me to trust fully in God for, you know, like every aspect of life, but especially getting married and all those kind of things that people my age naturally think about. Terrific 5-star customer service. And okay, I will say that I specifically chose this book because it is short and small and sweet, and I was trying to get caught up on my nonfiction reading, but ended up being really great and having a bunch of good customer service tips, which is kind of cool because I work at a coffee shop and sometimes I am doing the cash register, etc., etc. So it helped me remember, okay, this is how I should treat people and what I should do and what people like and all that fun stuff. And the last book I read in October was Learning from the Giants, which is a John Maxwell book, and it was a really quick read because it drew me in right away and made me want to keep learning and reading and finding out what was going to happen next. It goes through, I think, 7, I forget how many, but different people in the Bible and talks about their leadership skills and what we can learn from them and how God used them and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. Hopefully you had fun seeing the books that I read in October. I do not plan on reading that many books in November because I hope to focus a lot more on writing and editing than reading this month. But we'll have to see what it turns out to be.